I'll be back in 1 second.
And welcome back to Extravaganza, the world renowned, the Black Psychologist Podcast, episode 32. We are back for your listening and watching pleasures. I am one half of your humble and gracious host and clinician here for your listening pleasures, Dr. Kyle Osborne. Once again, he is I and I am him. And of course, I'm never by myself. I'm here with the guy. He's the tower of power, too sweet to be sour. Sky's the limit and space is the place. My man, the one and only Dr. Jason Coleman. What's up, good brother?
What's going on, brother? How you?
Hey man, another week, How's everything on your end?
Can't complain, man. Listen, I got some good. Well, I got some. It was a productive weekend. Got some work done. Saw some good movies. We're about to talk about one of them. Just hanging out, man. Hanging out. Really good weekend.
Cool, man. Yeah, definitely sounds like you got some self-care in there, you know. So
What
yeah,
did you do?
absolutely.
Did you guys get a chance to get out, walk the dog?
Yeah,
Get
yeah, man.
fresh
Yeah.
air. What's good?
Yeah, Midnight's doing cool, man. Midnight got she has a play date, or she has like a play person, like another dog and stuff. So she we getting her out there, her become a little bit of a socialite, you know.
What's up? That's
Yeah,
what's up.
so I'll be honest, I'm not liking these getting up in the morning, early walks though. It's getting a little chilly out there. You know, not
Oh
like
man, it's gonna get worse. Man. You're gonna be
it.
out there in 40-degree weather in dress socks.
Yeah, right.
It's gonna get worse.
The trouser
Gonna
socks.
get worse, bro.
But yeah, other than that, man, yeah, self care also over the weekend. Try to chill. So yeah, we definitely gonna get into it. But as always, we want to thank everybody for watching, for listening. Like you said, we're on episode 32, so we appreciate everybody with the positive feedback, with the comments. Continue to subscribe, continue to share, and continue to to comment because we love the feedback, and as always, join us with the conversation, the Black Psychologist Podcast at gmail.com. We want to hear from you if you have any questions, any comments, any statements. We want to hear. So yeah, we continue to enjoy and love the support. Anything else, Jay?
No, just as usual. We definitely appreciate all the support. Humbled by it. We're gonna continue with the content and just appreciative to anybody that takes time out of their week to listen.
All day. All right, so let's get into it, man. You alluded to it earlier. Yeah, we both got a chance to check out the movie The Harder They Fall. It's on Netflix. It's a black western themed movie. I was really excited about it. After when I checked it out late last week, I texted you and Ashley about it, like, you gotta check this out. This movie's crazy. And it
Right.
absolutely was. So I'm happy that we that it came out, and anybody who hasn't seen it, go check it out. It's a great movie, all-star cast. um and one of the cast members, great actor, LaKeith Stanfield. So if you're not familiar with his work, he was in the series Atlanta. He was in Get Out. He was in what else was he in? He was in oh the Judas and the Messiah. He was in that movie. Great actor, man. Great young actor. Um, and he recently opened up about experiencing mental health issues, especially during the filming of The Harder They Fall. So he was open, and he experienced he mentioned that he experienced crippling anxiety and drank every night after work while filming the Western themed movie. Um, so in the movie, Stanfield plays Cherokee Bill, an outlaw and member of the Rufus Black Gang. That's a group that was made up of black and Native American men who go on crime sprees. So I'm gonna read you a bit from his post. He posted on Instagram. He said the worst part of filming of this movie was that I was in a pretty bad space mentally. I couldn't see what life had in store to teach me about myself and that what I needed to know. He said, "There's a sadness in me if you look closely into the eyes of Cherokee." He said, "Every day on set, I was experiencing crippling anxiety and suffering silently inside. I would drink every night after work and try to laugh off my pain. The real Cherokee made me keep fighting as I thought that I had to keep fighting to fight, as I had to fight to survive. How the youth in Chicago have to fight every day to survive. Here's to fighting through the trauma to get to myself. Here's to almost 6 months sober. And here's to the fact that the bigger the goal God has for them, the taller they stand and the harder they fall." All right. So this isn't the first time that that Stanfield had mentioned or shared about his experiences in mental health. In 2020, he had posted a series on Instagram, a post of like pictures of pills, like alcohol,
Right.
and he had like this caption underneath that said, "I like to be myself because I can hurt myself and no one tells me to stop or fakes like they care." Now, after he had posted this, he did reassure fans that he was okay, and many of his coworkers and some of his friends went to check on him to make sure that that he was safe. Earlier this year, while filming um the Judas and the Messiah, he also spoke about experiencing panic attacks while he was filming that. And he talks about, in that movie he plays the person, the character, I'm forgetting his name, that conspired against Fred Hampton in the movie. And so he was the person that he was the informant that was giving the information to the feds, and this is what ultimately led to Hampton's assassination in real life, unfortunately. So and he said that that role took a toll on him just because of everything that he immersed himself into that role, that he felt like, I mean, he shared that in certain scenes, it felt like he was actually, being that character, right? Like he was mixing the poison and giving that information, and so he said what was helpful for him was going to therapy to help unpack his anxiety and to help him get through these scenes. Then he was able to get the tools to help him overcome some of the situations like that. So just hearing and reading through this article, Jay, what was your thoughts about it?
First, it's an excellent movie. I think Jay-Z had a hand in producing
Mm-hmm.
it. All-star cast, definitely a well-written movie. And although obviously it was, a fictional account, it's an important movie, right? Because depending on how old the listeners are, a lot of people might not even been alive or aware of like one of the last black westerns, like Posse, right? With
Right.
I think Marvin Van Peebles did that, Mario Van Peebles'
Yeah.
father. So you know, it's just important, right? Because there were African American black cowboys, and it just kind of showcases a different part of American history that we really don't talk about. So it's a good movie. Check it out if you got a chance on Netflix. What I kind of took from this article is just, number one, obviously, anytime somebody, chooses to kind of talk about their medical or mental health like challenges, you got to take your hat off to them for that. But this is really about maladaptive coping, right? And a lot of people aren't really willing to talk as much about that. And I think that's important, right? And again, his maladaptive kind of coping strategy was alcohol, and he kind of talked about the alcohol. It's been documented in terms of struggles with, whether it be prescribed or unprescribed prescription medication. But I just think it's important, as you know, kind of like, hold on, my bad. All right, my bad. I also think it's important just in terms of maladaptive coping styles in general, right? Because um, you know, alcohol isn't the only one that people use, right?
Right.
All right, there we go. I got my video back. So whether it's alcohol, whether it's smoking, whether it's aggressive behavior towards your partner, you know, these are just maladaptive strategies that individuals use every day, right? Whether we're coping through grad school, whether we're coping with something in our relationship, financial stress, or whatever. So we got to give him credit for being willing to talk about a maladaptive coping strategy, that affected him, you know, negatively, right? So got to give him credit for that, definitely. Um, the other thing I kind of took from this, was I don't think a lot of people really talk a lot about, what these actors and actresses go through in preparing for these roles, right? And how that affects their mental health, often negatively, right? Trying to transform yourself into a character, and absorb their pain so you can kind of transmit it or project it onto the screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've heard this over and over again, right? Like we talked about it earlier when we were talking about Andrea Day, right? Like um on another episode, when she was kind of talking about playing Billie Holiday, I think, right?
Yeah.
And we've heard this from actors and actresses alike. So I think that's one thing, that we also, kind of need to take into account, when we judge individuals who are in certain positions of power, or what we view as positions of power, right? Specifically, like individuals who are rich and famous, right? Because there are a lot of other things, that go along with these positions, that I don't know that we necessarily always value or kind of talk about. So those are the kind of the first two things I took from this.
No, I believe you're definitely on track with the acting aspect, and especially for the reason that I feel like acting is one of those professions that people take for granted. Like the people, I think that it's an easier profession than like your 9 to 5. It's one of those professions that people just feel like, all right, well, you're going up there, you're reading from a script, you're getting on stage, you're performing in some manner, but it's not as taxing as you know someone else that's experiencing maybe in some other industry. And acting can be extremely stressful. It's an extremely stressful profession. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm an actor by any means. However, you have some of the best in the business that, whether it's been Stanfield or it's been Denzel or it's been all of these other notable actors or actresses that, you know, they're the best in the business and they commit to their characters,
Right.
and it can be difficult to leave these characters behind if you're getting so immersed in what the character embodied. Just kind of thinking um about his character in the Judas and the Black Messiah is that he played what's the guy's name, William O'Neill. That was the name of the informant, the person in real life. um and there is some similarities in that, right? So considering how intense and how tragic the end came for the character himself, right? William O'Neill, like he actually died by suicide in real life
Okay.
after everything took place. And he had done like there's this notable interview that he does like years and years after that he participated in, and like literally 2 or 3 days later he committed suicide.
Right.
So, for someone like Stanfield to get so immersed in, the emotions and what, O'Neill was going through. Um, I mean, I think people just again don't understand that, your body and your mental state go through a tremendous transformation. If you're taking on this role, and that can be traumatic, right? It can cause a lot of serious trauma depending on the role that you're embodying, like we talked about Andrea Day and the Billie Holiday and the trauma that she experienced in real life. Like, you know your body and your mental state still go through it, even though it's fake or it's make believe or what have you. Like you're still going through it, your body's still going through it.
Yeah.
And some of these people take on a whole physical transformation. So a lot of this can be a very traumatic experience for these actors.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it, fake is subjective, right? Because again, people understand social anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they would act like there's a disconnect between, you know, that and that's so far away from some of these challenges that these actors and actresses are talking about, right? So I think that's kind of like, I think that's where us putting celebrities up on pedestals and that separation because they're financially successful kind of just leads us to not have that empathy, right? Because we would always have anxiety for, you know, the person at the school play that forgets, the words to the national anthem, right? Or a child that forgets their lines up there, or an adult, right?
Right.
But if it's an actor or actress, you know, then we don't have as much sympathy. Other thing I would want to draw people's attention to in this article specifically is when he was talking about the importance of kind of spending time around the horses, right? And again, like equestrian riding, like a lot of people do it, you know, for sport. A lot of people do it for recreation, but the value in terms of psychotherapy is underestimated, especially when we're talking about like equine assisted psychotherapy. There's documented benefits in terms of lowering anxiety, depression, benefits in terms of spending time around the animals, right?
Yeah.
It's not, it's more viewed as a supplement to therapy, of course. But again, there are benefits in terms of emotional regulation, having a non-threatening kind of partner along the journey with you. And he kind of talked about the value of spending time with the horses to the point of, you know, he kind of had some challenges separating, right? So I only bring that up in terms of just, again, whenever we can, just highlighting the importance of embracing alternative therapies or supplements to therapy that are important to the person or their culture.
Yeah, and to underscore that, he talks about, you know, again, how beneficial it was working with those horses. And at the same time, it's like he's using the resources around him to help him. Where also that you have to commend him for being vulnerable, you know, and talking about it. And what I also appreciate is he was learning these experiences, because he mentions that, you know, after Judas and the Black Messiah, he said, you know what, going forward, yeah, if I'm going to get immersed in these types of roles, you know, before stepping forward into something like that again, I need to have a therapist. And he talks about
Right.
that at the end of the article, which I think is really crucial and really important, for the reason that not just actors, but so many people will go through and experience, you know, severe symptoms like panic attacks and being overwhelmed with stress and the insomnia and all these other different symptoms. However, it's like, well, you know what? I'm, you know, being an actor or being a musician is my coping strategy. It is my skill. It's something that brings me peace. It's something, but it's also the same thing depending on the role that's causing the stress and become, you know, contributing to you being overwhelmed. So I'm happy that he actually took a step out of the, you know, I love what I do. It's peaceful for me. It helps me, but it's like, you know what? I need to step in and get professional help. And you know, he talks about being 6 months sober. He talks about, you know, having a therapist and being able to learn these different tools and going through the process of that. So I want to commend him for that, for actually, you know, stepping outside of himself and saying, hey, you know what? Let me try getting professional help. And then it appears, even though, and as we know, even if you have you're getting professional help and you're having these resources, anxiety still takes place. You know, it's situational, all the different circumstances. So I'm happy that at least along the way, he was still getting that professional help. So yeah, this is you know, I'm happy, and this is you know, a great strength, and it also shows a lot of vulnerability on his part. So yeah, I definitely appreciated and happy the fact that he was, you know, he was in a place to be comfortable to share this with us.
Yep. And I guess the last thing I would say to wrap it up is just like anxiety doesn't discriminate, right? So you can be an NFL, you know, level player, basketball player, and experience anxiety, or you could be an Oscar winning actor, actress, and still experiencing, you know, anxiety. So it does not discriminate. So just leave it there.
Exactly. All right. So moving on to the APA, the American Psychological Association. All right. So Jay, the APA recently issued an apology to people of color last week for its role in perpetuating systemic racism and discrimination in the U.S. All right. So I'm gonna read a couple quotes here. It says, for the first time, the APA and American psychology are systematically and intentionally examining, acknowledging, and charting a path forward to address their roles in perpetuating racism. All right. It says the governing body within the APA should have apologized to people of color before today. He said the work done to make this apology to people of color a reality was led by the people and voices of broad cross section and today's APA members, APA elected officials, and appointed leaders. All right. So it says the APA was established by white male leadership, many of whom contributed to scientific inquiry and methods that perpetuated systemic racial oppression and included promoting the ideas of early 20th century eugenics. All right. So the American Psychological Association is seeking to make amends for the past wrongdoings. What say you, Jay?
Oh, well, this is a big subject and it's a big question, right? So, um, are you asking me if they deserve some credit for acknowledging facts? I mean,
Yeah, you can throw
of
that in
course,
there.
you
But
would give somebody
when you saw
credit.
the apology come through, what were your thoughts? I mean, yeah, we can
I
get
mean,
into do they
listen.
deserve it, but what were your initial, thoughts
I
when
mean,
you
listen.
saw this come through?
It's a big question because the APA is one of many institutions, that have historically, kind of misrepresented statistics, decorated professionals in the field or whatever, to kind of promote racist policies and paint, different groups of people as inferior. So I felt, honestly, I experienced a little bit of dissonance, right? Because I was, as a Black psychologist, right? I think it's a small step in gaining a large portion of credibility back. All right. So
Mm.
that's the first thing I could say. Right. Listen, early in my career, I said it when we did the presentation about racial justice. One of my professors gave me a book or recommended Robert Guthrie, Even the Rat Was White. Okay. Historical viewpoint of how psychology was used to legitimize oppression of African Americans and promote the idea of Black inferiority. So I've always known, being a Black man, being a history of it. You understand? So that's real. So I mean, they talk in detailing the chronological history, of kind of racist practices, and they kind of committed to trying to dismantle racism. That I think is important because as psychologists, I think we're in a unique position, right, on an educational level, community level, and when it comes to healthcare. But with that being said, it's a small step.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think?
Um. So I'm honestly like I'm happy they're acknowledging it. However, it's long overdue. Like I'm proud to be a psychologist. I take pride in facilitating growth and helping others, as well as, I will rep, mental health, the mental health field and defend them to no end. However, there's a dark side of history of psychology. It's just plain and simple. Um and the APA can't continue to avoid it. They just can't. I mean, there's a pretty extensive timeline of psychologists in the past that promoted and used their privilege and they used their influence to promote white supremacy, to racism, um, and they highlighted it as like race betterment through these eugenic policies. Um, so I always looked at it when, especially when last year when the Black Lives Matter movement came to the forefront, and other different protests and things of that nature, that, the APA put out, these press releases and these statements and these endeavors like, oh, we'll dismantle racism and so on and so forth, which was good. However, it was also, I'm looking at like, well, psychology can't continue to attempt to disarm and dismantle racism without you first addressing your own history of racism and your own transgressions. So, that was kind of my thought process, where I'm happy, okay, yeah, you're acknowledging now, but like when they would put these, these statements out prior to this, it was like, well, what are you doing to clean out your own closet? Like, what do? You got to look in the mirror first and foremost before you start saying, those, and putting out those right statements of like, oh, we need our clinicians, we're focused on this. But I'm like, yo, you've also participated in these things. So I'm on like I'm happy that they're acknowledging it, and it sounds like some of the endeavors that that they're going to put forth are going to be helpful. But that was just kind of my initial, when I saw the apology, and it's just like, all right. I mean, I hope that no one was surprised by this, because I wasn't. But because again, we've known, we know the history of it. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, okay, well, we got into a field that we didn't know had this history. Now, as we learn more and more about it, through speaking to some professors and reading some of the books, like you mentioned, how deep and extensive it got, and it's pretty deep, it's pretty significant. But it's good that they're acknowledging it, but it's overdue.
But, and that's why when I started answering this question, I said, it depends on where you want to start, right? Because we're talking about like structural kind of like racism, right? So do we want to talk about schooling? Do we want to talk about housing? Do we want to talk about the medical system? Do we want to get to mental health, right? So whether you want to start with, Sir Francis Galton, and eugenics and that kind of promoting white superiority, or the 1900s, when they were using IQ tests, to kind of determine individuals as unfit, and sterilize them, go back, review Buck versus Bell, 65,000 people sterilized. Princeton educated psychologist Carl Brighton, 1922, a study of American intelligence, book published in this country, blaming immigration, and racial integration for the decline of the American IQ, right? So this is why people don't trust mental health. This is why people don't trust us. So this is the history, right? And that's just dipping your toe in the water, right? And then you come present day, and we have the documented discrepancies when it comes to African Americans being diagnosed with schizophrenia, or ADHD in the school setting, right? So that's the bow we wrap on it in 2021. So that this is why people come in my office, in your office, and they say, listen, I love you, doc, I'm glad you're here, but I don't believe shit you say, right? Because we have a history of systematic racism that has been promoted and covered up by people that we're supposed to trust, right? And then you have people out here arguing, that they shouldn't teach critical race theory in schools, right? So
Let me ask you this.
I'm gonna leave it right there.
Let me ask you
right there, but
I do want to ask you one question though, right? Do you think that this would have came out hadn't the movements taken place last year, and what's happening when things come
you
to
mean the statement?
Yeah, do you think the apology, the statement, the recognition? No. Yeah. And so, that's where it's like, all right, I get it, but it's like, would this have happened if those events didn't take place? I'm subscribing. I believe that it wouldn't have. I don't. Not to say it's not genuine. I mean, it's good, to get the history out, but I don't think this was prompted, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the death of George Floyd was a catalyst for a lot of things. But I think it held a mirror up to a lot of things, in this country, right? And when we talk about George Floyd murdered through, right? Because um, again, you can look at the bystander effect, right? And I mean, it's complicated because police officers were there with guns and blah 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 blah. But how do hundreds of people watch somebody get murdered for 9 minutes, right? There's factors that contribute to that, to how groups can watch somebody be murdered, right? Um, and again, obviously it's not that cut and dry, but there's a reason why you see, residual impact, whether it be from the helplessness people feel from having observed that, or anxiety and depression from observing somebody murdered, and intrusive thoughts or whatever might come from that, right? But the only reason why I bring it up is, it held a mirror up to a lot of people. It was a day of reckoning for a lot of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, the day after that, it's like for some of us, George Floyd might as well have been our brother, because we felt that broken. And then for others, it wasn't our responsibility, right? So again, it's important, because all of these historical events, right, when we're using research in the wrong way to paint people as unfit and less than and animals, and you know these are the foundational events and things that get us to where we're at now, right, where we can view somebody as less than a human, right? It was systematic. It wasn't something that just happened overnight. And I think that's the problem when we start talking and having conversations about systematic racism, right? Because you have individuals who have the privilege at this point, and because it doesn't make them feel good, and they can legitimately say, well, it wasn't my fault, I didn't do anything, they want to forget about it, right? But all of these things are the reasons why we have problems getting people of color to walk into a hospital,
Right.
or to return to a therapy session. So it's important that we teach critical race theory. It's important that we talk about these issues. And you can't just say, well, I didn't do it, I'm a psychologist and I'm not racist, so let's move on. I smile at all my clients and give them snacks, and I work in the city. It just doesn't, it's just not enough. So, but these are I mean, it sounds funny, but these are the attitudes people really have, right? When you start really having conversations about, you know, um, about racism and prejudice, and the impact, right? Especially in our area, right? So, ongoing conversation.
Absolutely. So I'll end it on this, is that I agree. It's a small step in the right direction, because the damage has been done, right? The damage is great. You just listed many examples of how great and how deep that this goes. Um, I will say that this is significant for the reason that I believe that this does represent hope. Like, as for people of color, like, we've made a great deal of progress in this field. Like, you and I and others that have become psychologists, and you know, we've made it this far and made this progress despite that systemic racism and other barriers that were put in front of us. And so, when I see this apology, it's like, okay, if they're gonna truly incorporate all these endeavors that they said that they intend to, or that they stated that they're gonna make, all right, well, I hope that this apology kind of signals that we are getting closer to that, reaching what mental health system is supposed to be, like you said. Hopefully. But again, like you said, it's to be monitored. We'll see,
I
right?
mean,
We'll see where this goes. But if it goes where it's supposed to, we're getting closer to what mental health is supposed to be, of having people that look like us come in and actually trust us and trust the system even more. Because they might trust us, but they might not trust the system, and that's where the issue is. So we'll see, like you said.
I mean, one more reason why, and I'll make it quick, why I think this is important is, I think Trayvon Martin was murdered in 2013 and 2014. It might have been 2000.
It
Well,
was around. It was around there.
right. And the reason why statements like this are important is because, and I feel bad saying this, right? But it gives and it's shameful that I even have to say this, right? But it gives some of these conservative schools and these conservative programs, it gives them for lack of a better term, a push and cover to actually deal with issues that are going on, right? Because, you know, on a personal level, like I watched not only our, you know, alma mater, but a lot of different schools struggle with how to deal with those issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean is struggle with how to deal with it is, you know, for weeks and weeks there was just no response, right? And and for me, I would think that if you are a psychology teacher on a high school level, if you're a psychology teacher in a college level, if you definitely if you're in a doctoral program, these are the most important issues that are in the world. You understand what I'm saying? So for me to come to class and learn whatever is going on in the book for that week, I was very frustrated. You know what I mean? But as a student, you're very powerless, you know? And I'm gonna be very honest, like I went to faculty with my frustration and I was told that it would be better brought up if it by a student issue, right? As a student issue, right? So what that said to me as a student was that faculties had the same fear as me. Faculty of color had the same fear as me that
Right.
if they were to bring up, well, what are we doing? Why aren't we having these conversations about black males being shot in the back? Because they were concerned.
Mm-hmm.
They shared my concern, but they said it would be better if you bring it up, right? So when that happens, you know, that's a big problem.
It is.
It's a big problem, man. So the reason why I said the APA provides them cover, right, is because it may be cowardly, but at least you can look at that and say, well, now we have the freedom to talk about some of these issues without making somebody feel uncomfortable or disturbing them, right? Because when those issues finally were addressed on our campus, it was a student-led thing. I was there, I was involved. You know what I mean? It was a student-led thing. It wasn't led by me, you know, but it was medical students that said, we got to do something. With Black medical students, we're in the third, fourth year. You know, we can't just be sitting here learning in the library and people is just getting shot in the back all over. We got to have something to say. And we had a vigil, and people were spoke, and it was a nice event, right? But if we would have waited for the school to leave, it would have never happened.
Yeah. No, it's
So I only
definitely.
say that to say, I know they were dealing with those issues immediately on Howard's campus, right? Morehouse campus, Cheney's campus. You know they were dealing with those issues, right? I can confidently say that. You know, somebody was having a discussion, having a rally. I'm calling a meeting to either allow people to express their feelings or talk about an action plan. You know, but in some of these, places of higher education where you would think that those conversations would be going on, they weren't.
No, it's definitely indicative of a larger issue, and we'll see. We'll see where the APA. They have these goals and these endeavors and these things that they're going to be putting in place. But let's see if they follow up. So, something we'll continue to monitor. All right. So we talked a little bit about anxiety earlier in the episode, and there have been some new waves type of strategies that people have been utilizing. So when it comes to managing anxiety, right, there have been a lot of options out there. We have meditation, we have therapy, we have medication, of course, being prescribed under the guidance of a physician. um, and some other methods have come to the forefront. So there's a couple of them. So one is anxiety rings. All right. So for those people that aren't familiar what anxiety rings are, it may sound high tech, but it's really not. You know, they're like these delicate kind of rings that come with tiny beads in the form of like multiple bands that spin on your finger. And they're sometimes known as spinning rings or they're worry rings. But the anxiety rings, they have like movable balls on them, and when you're feeling or you're experiencing anxiety or stress, you can like fidget with them or move them accordingly. And they have different styles, and so it helps focus, recenter, and alleviate the anxiety. All right. And they have like different types. They have different sizes. So they have some rings that are made with like beads for fidgeting. If beads aren't your thing, then you can have like a roller ring. You can go that route. And if you're trying to go for like more of a bulky type of look, you can they have like these 4-piece anxiety ring sets that have like a heavier spinner ring. So you got anxiety rings. You also have slime, because slime has become a trending, social media, and people play with it as a way to alleviate stress and anxiety. All right. So slime isn't new, apparently. Slime, it's been like really due to like TikTok and other different social media forms. It's become pretty popular. I was doing some research and it says that over 29.4 billion TikTok views under the slime hashtag, and another 25 billion on YouTube. And it says, as a result, people have banded together to create full-fledged slime communities to use these colorful, squishy, um, you know, devices that they can use to assist for a new tool for their mental health. Ryan Joseph, who is a slime content creator, said, as you watch slime videos, you become more relaxed and a lot of stress is released through the satisfying auditory sounds. And slime serves as a calming method as it aids many people in coping with stresses in their life, even if you're only watching it for a 60-second video. How about that, Jay? What do you think about it?
I guess I'll start with the rings. This is the first time I really heard about it. I was looking. Um, Listen, man, they have something for you to buy, for every ailment nowadays.
Yeah, and it's between $10 to $30. You can get different ones, man.
10 to 30 bucks.
10 to 30 bucks, man.
I mean,
Amazon,
listen,
Etsy, all that stuff.
really, do I think they could work? Yes. I'm not saying that based on research that I've read, because I haven't. I'm saying that based off how they were kind of describing using it. And they were kind of describing using it like similar to like a stress ball or a fidget cube.
Yeah.
And in a manner that they were talking about using it is it kind of fits into the box of like grounding. So it's kind of like a grounding tool to help you kind of clear your mind and stay grounded in the present moment. If you feel yourself being distracted, you kind of play with the ring and so I think from that standpoint, it could be beneficial. Also, I think people have to understand the distinction, like the same way we were kind of talking about the equestrian riding. This is a preventative kind of measure, right? And a supplement, right? So this is something that you might see a young adult or an older adult use like in class or in a meeting, right? When they start to feel anxious and they're trying to kind of get through the last 15, 20 minutes of the meeting, or you got a speech to make and you don't want to kind of tap your feet or sweat. So you're kind of playing with the ring. Um, I can see it in that sense, being a good kind of assistive tool in terms of helping individuals kind of like calm and center themselves in a moment. With that being said, it's not a substitution for therapy or prescribed medication at all. So in terms of the slime, again, you got to note before you say, they kind of noted in the article, there's not any peer-reviewed studies to kind of back up what people are saying. So this is anecdotal kind of stuff. But again, they're talking about coping, using it to cope with feelings of stress and anxiety, right? So it makes sense. It's kind of analogous to like kinetic sand in terms of engaging your senses, right? They talked a lot about poking, squishing, right? And listening to the sounds and all of those things. When you were talking about looking at the different colors, I didn't even factor that in. So when you say that, it kind of brings me to, and again, I'm just making loose associations just based off, what I'm thinking, my opinion. It kind of brings me to like a mindfulness element in terms of like looking at like waves, right? Things like that. And how that can have a calming effect on people. So again, to each his own. You're gonna have some people who the bright colors and all of those things, they might be overstimulated by it, so it may increase the anxiety. But obviously for those thousands of people that are watching, it's giving them a calming effect, right? So I'm one of those people where if it's not going to hurt you, I think a lot of things can be used as a supplement to therapy, but again, a supplement.
Yeah, when I
Did
was
you go?
reading it and I saw it,
Did you
I
buy
thought
your Did you buy your anxiety rings or your slime yet?
I'm gonna get some. I'm gonna get some. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna do the pinky ring part. That's what I'm gonna do. Because if you're gonna do it, you might as well look good while you're doing it.
I'm gonna get a four finger ring.
There you go. Now you're thinking. Yeah, I mean, um,
I'm an
yeah,
80s
I
baby. I'm an 80s baby.
when it reading about this and looking at like some of the videos and some of the pictures that they provided, yeah, the first thing that thought into that popped in my head was like you mentioned, a fidget toy or like a stress ball. And it seems like the anxiety ring, it seems like it's like a blend of both the releases and like the grounding element of like stress relief, right? And like it can bring like some help to being in a or gaining like a being a good headspace, or like that sense of emotional regulation. um yeah, I would like to see some research. I would like to see some peer reviewed articles, so hopefully maybe that'll be coming down the pike in the near future. um it absolutely seems like it's a good distraction tool. And same thing with the slime, like the sensory, right? Like you said, the feeling, the smell, the vision aspect of it. And yeah, I share the same concerns. I'm just hoping that this is short-term relief. That's what this is. It's like similar to a stress ball. um it shouldn't be relied upon like as full-fledged treatment or like a cure. And I feel like that I don't want people, especially when things start to get on TikTok, to get on different social media outlets or platform, that people look to that as like that's going to cure your anxiety.
Right.
um and that's not the case, right? It's a coping strategy rather than a cure. um and if you are experiencing severe anxiety, um you know I'm worried that this will fall into that thing where it's like a safety seeking behavior, right? And that'll be like just a one off, and that's it's not going to tackle the root cause of the anxiety. So absolutely use it if it's helpful, like you mentioned. However, it's just like you said, it's not a substitute for treating anxiety, which we know takes it takes time. It takes time. It takes some the mental and emotional development to work and alleviate on what's causing the stress and the anxiety. So but it's creativity. It's good to see how things are evolving, how these strategies are going to be working for different people that have different strengths and different things that'll work for them. So we'll see. So I'm hoping that some research comes out, they can get backed, and some more empirical data can go. But yeah, man, I got you. You want that slime for Christmas? I got you, bro. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah, man.
All
I'll
right,
take
so
it.
it's football season, Jay. All right. And not only college football, not only NFL football, we got high school football. And in certain areas of the country, high school football is like religion. All right. So
Yep.
this past Friday, Inglewood High School defeated Inglewood Morningside High School, which they're both located in California. So hopefully this doesn't get too confusing. But Inglewood High defeated Inglewood Morningside in a high school football game by a score of 106-0. That's right. 106-0. So after leading Morningside High by 59-0 at the end of the first quarter, right? Not the first half, the first quarter, Jack. All right. Inglewood High kept scoring throughout the rest of the game. They even attempted a 2-point conversion instead of like the regular field goal when they were up 104-0. All right. So at the end of the game, the coach of the Morningside football team called the blowout a classless move. He said, and the Inglewood Unified School District, which oversees both high schools, said that it was saddened beyond words by the events and promised a full investigation. Like this started to gain like national like media, right? Hype. Like Dick Vitale, the famous college basketball commentator, um, called for discipline into the Inglewood coaching staff. All right. So what's your take on all of this? Like, have we as a society have we lost decency or where are we at?
I mean, we're just polarized, man. I mean, I'm not gonna go too hard on this. Was it classless? Yes. Okay. Listen, I'm not by any means, I'm not the participation trophy guy, right? So I'm not the guy like, yeah, you go out there and you lose 40-0, everybody gets the same certificate. At a certain age, yes. If we're talking about, 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds, even 6-year-olds, fine. But when we get to a certain level, children have to be able to deal with losing, winning, and losing as part of, competition, games, life, everything else. This is not that, right? This is excessive, right? So I got mixed feelings towards it because I kind of feel like on a high school level, I kind of feel like administratively, right, there should be some sort of policy where once the score gets to a certain point, they either stop keeping score, or a winner gets called and it's just an exhibition. You know what I mean?
So you want a mercy rule?
I mean, listen, because otherwise it's college, right? Otherwise in college, like step on your neck. If it's 90-4, stop them, right? But when we're talking about high school sports, I'm sure that when they're going around the country trying to get money for their program or donors or even within their own town, they're talking about the spirit of competition, promoting self-esteem, building self-confidence, the team spirit, all of those things, right? And all of that gets lost when you're up, 106-0. You know what I mean? Again, some people may not agree with me. A lot of people may not agree with me, but I just think, do you allow them to play out the game? Yes, but there's a humiliation element of it, right? So I just think after a certain time, you either call a game because of time, or you call it because of the score, or you just stop counting the score. But at some point, the game needs to be called, and that's really all I'll say about that. What you think?
This reminds me, man. I'm gonna age myself. So in 2004, I was like a sophomore or junior in at Cheney, right? And bro, we played Western Illinois. We got blown out 98-7.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, right. So here's the thing. I'm kind of along the lines of I'm not a participation trophy type of person. Um, was it classless? I feel like more content needs to be added for the reason that um I feel like it's classless if you leave your starters in. Okay. If you leave your starters in, and mind you, it wasn't like these they're both playing in the same district, from what I understand. Like I was reading a couple other articles, and it looks like the team that did the blowing out, what was that? The forgot what was it? Hillside Morning California, right? Or no, Inglewood High. Like 2 or 3 years ago, they were on the receiving end of a lot of blowouts, right? Like 2 or 3 years ago, they got a new coach, recruitment, and all these other different things. So these teams, I don't want to say they were evenly matched, but they're in the same district. So it's not like you have one team is like Alabama and you got the other team is like, some other Pee-wee team and they're just getting, just demolished out there. So they're both, like you said, high school teams. They're in the same district. Obviously one team is more talented than the other. So I feel like I believe it's classes if you leave like your starters in. Like if your starters are like, they're just moving, they're just doing whatever they want to, and you leave them in, then I feel like that's classes. But if you have the second, third, fourth string guys in there and they're still scoring, because I look at it like as a coach, we have to look at it, also from the perspective of the coach that's winning. How do you tell your second or third string or your fourth string like players don't run the ball? Just go out there and take a knee, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is their opportunity to play too. They've been waiting to get some shine. They've been waiting to get in the game. This is the opportunity. So they're going to go out there and play hard. So,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're a coach and, I don't know if you're able to tell your team, like, again, these are the guys coming off the bench to say, hey, go at half speed when you go out there. So that's kind of the aspect
Mm-hmm.
or kind of the perspective I wanted to keep in mind and take in consideration. Did the score get out of hand? It did. I'm also someone who's, been on the other end, and this may seem kind of anecdotal, but I've also been on the other end in basketball or on football where I've been on the receiving end of a blowout. And it's not fun. And at the same time, if I don't want that to happen, then me and my teammates need to do something to keep that from happening. Right? We need to keep
Listen,
people out the end zone. So, I know it's not that
I,
easy, but yeah.
I understand that. Like, again, when we're talking about college students, I agree with you, right? But we're talking about like children. So, it's a reason. It's like I'm gonna be very honest, like, because what's the cutoff age, right? It's the reason why they usually don't give too many F's out in elementary school, right? Because the lesson will get lost. You know what I mean? Because what I can guarantee you is that I don't care what high school it is, 80% of those kids, 90% of them, 95% of them are not going to the NFL. They're
Right.
not, right? 90% of them, well, 80% of them are probably not even going to play in high school. Play in college, right? So if they're not going to the NFL, and this is just how I look, and they're not going to play, most likely, we're talking about not possible, but probable, right? That this little town, unless they're the best town in the United States, majority of them are not going to NFL, majority of them are not going to D1 schools. So then what's the point, right? The point is for the kids to get a workout, to have fun, to build camaraderie, to build their self-esteem. So again, it becomes, I think the reason why I think you have somebody like Dick Vitale?
Yeah.
Saying that they want an investigation is because, think about it, somebody at that high of a level is looking. The reason why I think he's saying that is because you can look at that situation and you say, it's not at all about the kids. It could be about a coach that's trying to get another job. You understand? So that's why my perspective is like, I get it, like, but Alabama, if they get blown out 106 to 5, then it's like, okay, you go back there and you look at Nick Saban and you say, men, we got to reevaluate how we prepared today.
Right.
But 14-year-olds, I hear you. I've been blown out. I've been a part of those blowouts. Like,
It's not
playing for
fun.
Columbia, Randolph used to come to town and blow us out by 60. You know what I'm saying? But again, I'm just talking in terms of the spirit. I'm not taking it to the degree of saying that there's some long lasting, impact in terms of,
Right.
they're going to develop psychological issues. It would just, if I was a parent in the stands of the winning team, it would leave a bad taste in my mouth. You know what I'm saying? Because I just don't see the point. You know what I'm saying? It's just like when we see, it's just like back in the day or whatever. If two people, have a fist fight, at some point somebody gonna be like, well, he had enough.
Yeah.
He had enough. He got out there, he gave, but he had enough. So that's my logic. But not saying I don't see your point, right? Because if you were a coach that's training kids for the next level, you don't want to hear nothing I just said.
Right. Or even like,
If
like a lot of these blowouts are outliers, right? Like how often do you see something like this bad? Right. So this is just like this is like an extreme outlier.
right.
again, there are parents on both sides. So you have the parents that are on the side that their kids are getting like just trashed and just getting just walked all over the field. And then you have the other parents, again, that have kids that typically maybe don't get in the game because maybe the other games are close, right? So you never see like these kids get in. And so as you're seeing an opportunity, like, yeah, you know what, as a parent, you want to see your kid go out there and play as hard. And unfortunately, someone has to win, someone has to lose. Now, there's typically, a manner in which people, lose and win. I mean, it's tough. I do feel like, if you are going to have a situation like in high school, then there should be a cutoff, like you're saying. And it sucks. Like I've been on the receiving end of,
Yeah, me too.
of just, it's a long day. It's a terrible feeling. Um, and at the same time, it's like, all right, well, like you said, I'm not too concerned about, like you said, the lasting effects and it being like traumatizing, and now you just don't want to play football anymore. However, it is a situation where it's like it's there's a way to go about it, and if, I feel like if the district is worried or concerned about things like this happening, like if this is happening frequently, then yeah, you should put in a cutoff, or a mercy rule or something rather. I just find it like it's tough to have, and I completely understand what you're saying. At the same time, it's also tough to tell kids maybe who aren't like or that are the bench players to not go out there and play.
I mean, it's a good listen. It's a good point. I don't have no rebuttal to that. It's
So
just I'm just talking about like decision I would have made. It's not law. It's not. It's like I can't even say that I feel that that I'm completely right in that situation. Like I said, I would have only made that decision because it would have left a bad taste in my mouth. But again, I see the other side too. I can see the other side.
I'll tell you what, if you're on the losing end of that, I mean, you get to see the kids who have heart that are still out there playing hard despite what's happening.
Man, get out of here, man. Them kids got you down 100-0. They out there picking grass. Knock it off. They out they out there waiting to go to Red Lobster, man.
Yeah, you ain't go to Red Lobster after a loss like that, bro.
Right. Ain't no Red Lobster tonight,
Ain't
so
no,
we're going
no
to
Red
Wawa.
Lobster, no Pizza Hut, no nothing.
We're going to Wawa, get you one of them sandwiches.
If that, you make your own damn sandwich.
Right. So,
all right, Jay, man. That's all I got. Anything else before we get out of here, good bro?
no, nothing really, bro, man. Just of course we want to thank everybody that takes time to listen. And we're gonna be back with some more content next week.
Absolutely. So continue to watch, continue to listen, subscribe, like, comment. And we wish everybody good mental health. Jay, until next week, I'll see you, good bro.
All right, my brother.
All
Later.
right.